Hello, dear listeners. You're listening to the GamePitch podcast, a weekly chat between two pals that is all about video games and the game industry.
Every week, we'll bring you the latest gaming news, hand out industry red cards, and pitch an all-new game idea.
The GamePitch podcast drops Monday mornings on the Project Nerd Podcast Network.
It's the perfect antidote to your end of the weekend blues.
I'm JD.
And I'm Eli. Let's get to the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the GamePitch podcast. I'm your host JD, here with my lovely co-host Eli, as always. Eli, want to say hi to everyone?
Well, hello listeners, and hello to you, J to the totally not a lazy bitch D.
Eli yesterday sent me some screenshots from Animal Crossing. One of them was, I don't even know the anteater's name. I don't know that villager's name, but it's an anteater sitting there with a ton of ants everywhere, and he just sent that photo and the words lazy bitch. And I didn't really look at it too closely, and I thought he was calling me a lazy bitch because I had forgot to edit stories the night before. Anyway, welcome to the show, everyone.
This week in Animal Crossing, Elijah stepped in it. That's what happened.
This week is a packed show, a lot to talk about. So we're going to break down Microsoft's Inside Xbox event that happened on Thursday. We have a lot of different earnings calls that I think we're going to dive into and kind of just take a look at the business of the industry and some of these major players. Those are a little more serious. We're going to bookend that with some absolute ridiculousness in our fastballs this week, and Eli has quote unquote the worst game pitch idea ever, and I am extremely excited for it.
Oh, it's just again, man, my goal in this is to make games that you think, man, that would be funny if someone made it, but boy would it not make its money back.
Which means it's the perfect project for Stadia. Shannon, if you're listening, please don't forget to DM us back on Twitter. What are you playing this week, Eli?
You know, I kept playing The Messenger a little bit more, and that game is hard. I've actually got to a boss where, like, it's blisteringly hard, and I don't know if you know the game, but there's this little demon when you die that pops up, and he consumes your collectible time gems until you pay off your debt for him resurrecting you, and then he flies away. But every time you die, he says something kind of shitty to you on the screen. Like, he just like antagonizes you for dying. And then yesterday he was just like, you've died 61 times, man, that sucks. And I was like, bro,
the game is roasting you for not being good at the game.
Oh, I've died on that boss at least 10 times now. It's been frustrating, but it's okay. I'll figure it out. Also, I know you know this, but I've been playing a little bit of Roblox. I've been doing some research for our spin-off podcast called Game Blocks, where we are going to basically beat blocks our way through game development and creation tools that a robust Roblox has to offer us.
Yeah, I think, we have a couple different names for that show. One of the other ones is Roblox Today, where it's just a bi-daily podcast that we talk about Roblox once in the morning, once in the afternoon. We're really looking forward to releasing that one. Stand by for that on the Project Nerd Podcast Network. It's going to be a real gem.
JD, I don't know if you know this, but Roblox is actually a gaming platform, so you can make games within it. The coding language Lua is utilized within it, but it's like, like a Unity sort, and you build with the blocks, and it's kind of a gateway into game design. Now, I want to read to you some Roblox games, and I want you to tell me if they're real or fake, just off the top of the cuff, okay?
I'm ready for this.
Adopt Me.
That's real.
Jailbreak.
That's fake.
Natural Disaster Survival.
That's real, absolutely.
That's a PUBG-like, just so you're aware. Welcome to Bloxburg.
I hope it's real.
Work at a pizza place.
Definitely real.
Royal High.
That's fake.
Super Strike League.
Oh, sounds like a bowling thing, so it's real.
All real. It's actually soccer. Everything was real that I read to you.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
So Adopt Me, I was playing that this weekend. Adopt Me has an exclusive, 2-week timed exclusive with Scoob, the movie Scoob, where you can in-game adopt Scooby-Doo. He has lost his collar, and you have to go on a series of challenging adventures to help Scoob get his collar back. And once you get his collar, you can successfully adopt him and have him in your party long term.
Nothing has ever sounded less fun to me.
Look, JD, you haven't played it.
You're right.
When someone like Heath Ledger is Joker, the beautiful man from A Knight's Tale, of course I'm into it, but that's not what people said. They were like, ew. Give Adopt Me a chance.
I'm sorry.
I want to let you know about Adopt Me. You can play as a parent or a child, and you, as the child, can try to get adopted, or as a parent, you can choose who to adopt. Innovative gameplay.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Try to get adopted as a little baby.
Oh, this is terrible. I absolutely will not be playing this game. Thank you so much.
What are you playing?
Ugh, let's see. What am I mean, obviously there's the go-to. I played Animal Crossing. I did also turn on my computer and update some games and played Stardew Valley for a little while. I don't know. I guess I'm just yearning for a simpler farm-filled life with everything going on in the real world. I'm just really into these chill, slowed down games. I don't want anything too crazy or high paced right now. That being said, I did update Call of Duty Warzone because I'm ready to get back in there and continue my pro career in that game. It's a pretty mellow week this week. Just lots of Animal Crossing, lots of Stardew Valley, and getting ready to download the Star Wars pod racing game on my Switch next week when it launches. I'm really looking forward to that. And I will 100% be going all out competitive, trying to just rank in the top 10 in the world. Not going to lie.
I love it. Well, you made me realize you're doing two really useful things for yourself. In Animal Crossing, you're learning how to manage an economy and how to, just manage the money systems. And then in Stardew Valley, you're learning the produce, you're learning how to regrow, you're learning how to make and build and make something of value
True.
for society. So when the world does inevitably end, you are built for apocalypse leadership. So
I love it.
I am conscripting myself to you now. I pledge
Thank you.
fealty to J to the totally not a lazy Bizage D, and I I am yours, sir.
Thank you. I thank you so much. We will build a new society. We will rebuild from the ashes and make GamePitch nation, and it will be glorious.
You have my slingshot and my golden axe.
Which still breaks somehow.
That was a terrible gimbly, so I'm going to move away from that. Just a quick, before we jump into our fastballs, this week on Twitter, N64 was trending, and no one knew why. But because of it, a lot of games journalists and people I follow, they just decided to put up pictures of their favorite Fore N64 games. So, JD, do you have Fore in mind, or do you just want me to just drop mine to give you time to think of some?
No, you know what? I was giving this a little bit of thought, and I think if I had to narrow it down, I would pick Ocarina of Time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an easy one. From a friends and good memories point of view, I have to pick GoldenEye 007. I can't imagine that wouldn't make my top 4 with how much time I put into it. Star Fox 64, certainly. And no shock on this one, Banjo-Kazooie.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's all I needed to hear for me to not hit the stop record button and to leave the room in fury. So my top 4, we had 2 of the same ones. It's of course Banjo and of course Ocarina of Time. I've also got Paper Mario and Mario 64 on there.
Mario 64 was dangerously close to making the list, but I really felt like I had to include GoldenEye just because it really did sort of give birth to that multiplayer FPS playing with friends, high stakes gameplay that shaped a lot of what I enjoy playing as an adult. It shaped that in me as a kid, and so I feel like it had to make it on there.
No, I feel you. And so I chose no multiplayer games because I'm an only child and I had no friends. So
oh no.
I'm glad you had a good childhood. I'm just kidding.
Oh no.
I played so much Mario Kart and Perfect Dark and Star Fox. Oh, I was dogfighting that full player. You know what? I was supposed to get Star Fox 64 one Christmas, but my neighbor stole it. Like, because I had asked my mom for it. Yeah, he like shoved it into the front of his pants. Because like one day my mom was like, "What was that bulge in his pants?" And he didn't even know what he was stealing. He just stole a box from under the Christmas tree.
That's awful. That is so terrible. Also, it's so weird for your mom to be like, "What was that bulge in his pants?"
It's okay. It's okay. That kid fell into a bush when he was looking at a hot girl. Like, like in those 80s movies when like the girl comes out at like the pool for the first time and everyone's just like turning their head.
And it's in slow motion and it's like,
yeah.
And it's like them flicking their hair back. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we were all outside and I think someone's older sister came outside before a date or something and everyone was just like, blam. And the kid was on his bike and he didn't like realize there was like some kind of thing on the ground and he like flew off his bike into like a rose bush. Like this is like full on sitcom. Like it was just like, that's what you get for stealing my Star Fox, you little punk ass piece.
It sounds scripted to hit something with such force that he then flew into a rose bush. It doesn't even sound real. I know it is, because I know you wouldn't lie to me about this, and you definitely wouldn't lie to everyone listening.
No, I think it probably it's probably more bombastic in my head than it actually was. He probably just like messed up in some way. But yeah, that's what it was, man. It was just like I know he was in the rose bush at the end of the story, so I don't know. I was 7. Like, who knows what really happened? But I remember the hot girl and I remember the rose bush.
Hey, I like it. Those are your cornerstone memories.
Let's get into the fastballs, buddy. We've got some great stories this week.
You know what? I don't think great is the word that I would use to describe the stories we pick. So if you haven't checked it out, we draft the news every week before we record the pod. So we each take turns picking stories that we want to talk about this week. And then the rest of the ones that we don't pick actually make their way into a YouTube exclusive segment called Extra Time, where we rapid fire our way through the news that we didn't quite cut into the pod, but we still want to talk about. Great is not the word I would use to describe these stories. I don't know what kind of mood we are in. There's some good ones in here, and there's some really weird ones. So let's start.
Agree to disagree. You have the first pick. Tell us, Jay.
All right. So shortly after Microsoft had their Inside Xbox event this week, right after it ended, Bungie actually took time to come out and confirm that they are developing Destiny 2 for both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. So they are going to be bringing the current game that's live right now to those platforms. The one thing that they didn't explicitly state, especially in the context of the Xbox, is if it will take advantage of smart delivery. So we don't know yet if we are going to have to, as players, rebuy Destiny for these new gen, or if they are going to take advantage of this technology that Microsoft has, which would be massive, in my opinion. And so, I don't know. Here's the thing. Like, if they don't do it, I think I don't know how into Destiny you are anymore, but there's a ton of discourse about the game with how it feels like taken a lot of their development time and energy and put it into crafting microtransactional items through Eververse. And so it feels like the loot pool for just the activities that you play in game, the reward is no longer quite as good as, well, I'll just spend $5 and I can get way nicer looking armor or way nicer emotes or whatever, right? And so it feels like the reward of playing is so like outweighed now by these microtransactions propping the game up. And that is my core fear, is that if Bungie has the opportunity to sell another copy of the game, that they might do that. And I don't like that at all.
We talked about Batman earlier today, me and you, on our draft.
We did.
And you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, my friend. And I'm sorry, I can't see Bungie as being independent and on their own not charging money for this. I give it like a 0% chance that they're not going to charge people. I'm ready to be wrong about the smart delivery thing. That'd be awesome. But when you're propped up by microtransactions and that greed's there, that bottom line, it doesn't look good for us, friend.
I know. Look, you're right. And I know you hate to say it. I hate to hear it, but we'll see. We'll see what they do. Anyway, so more details coming soon, right? We'll have these new consoles later this year, and I suspect Bungie will give us some more details throughout the summer at the various online summer game festivals that are happening. But that's our first story. Eli, what do you got for us next?
So I have to give a red card to Twitter because I have muted the words Last of Us Part 2, Naughty Dog, Sony, just to avoid these Last of Us Part 2 like spoilers, but somehow the trailer still got into my main Twitter newsfeed. I have no idea how it happened, but I weighed my options about watching the new trailer because this is the final story, or really this is only the third time they've actually shown the game like proper, this trailer. So I decided I'll watch it. We got to talk about it for the pod anyway. To no one's surprise, it looks beautiful. The foliage is delightful. It's definitely darker and grittier than the last one. I'm sure the subject matter is going to hurt all of us in the feels, but then also like morally, like what are we doing? Are we the bad guy? I'm sure that's going to cross our minds. So I think this is going to make us reckon with, Nathan Drake. He's just like a mass murderer, but he has a smile, so we don't care. And this is actually maybe having some consequences to our combat and our, constant murder in games. And I'm into that. I'm really into that, and it looks great.
It does. It looks beautiful. It will be a beautiful story. I'm happy that I haven't been spoiled, and I don't think you have.
I have not.
Okay, good. That's excellent. And obviously, we're not going to talk about spoilers because we don't know anything about them. Yeah, no, I'm excited to see how this one plays out. Just as a reminder, that comes out June 19th now.
It does, and the pre-orders are live again, and I will be buying that game. I think I'm actually going to take a day off of work to just play it. I think my goal is to I'd like do the same thing I did with like the Halos, just like beat it, get it at midnight, and then just like energy drink through and just beat the whole damn game before Sunday. Like that's my goal.
I like it. I mean, you should do that. You should absolutely do that.
We're gonna have to pod in the middle of that, but it's fine.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, if you have to take a little break, no
You'll hear me.
problem.
I'll be loopy. I'll just be like, oh god, so many clickers.
Maybe that'll be a very fast pod. We're going to just speed through everything.
Your pick was next for number 3.
All right, this is where the stories start to get weird. So Amazon Games announced late last week, that they have a new game coming out called Crucible. It's free to play. It's a competitive team-based shooter, and it's being developed by a studio called Relentless Studios. It's coming out on May 20th, and it looks very odd. So effectively, you have a roster of different character people that you can play as. They all have their own weapons. They all have their own abilities. Does this sound like a game you've heard before? Probably. In game, you can collect something called Essence, which will make your character more powerful and enhance their abilities. Does this sound familiar still? And then in it, they have a couple different modes that have multiple versions of, 4-on-4 or 8-on-8, things like that, right? I mean, okay, so I watched the first look. I've seen some screenshots. I don't know what to make of this. I really don't.
They've pieced together just different things from different games, and I don't see anything original in this. I don't know why you would make this move specifically, and I like to think that Amazon has so much money that they can be smart, and maybe they have so much money that they just don't care, and they're just trying to get more games out under the Amazon Games label. But it seems to me that this is just a lot of things that other stuff has done before, and when you see Gearbox failing with something like Battleborn, and it can't get off the ground against the likes of your Overwatches and your Leagues and your other, character-based games that have these kind of systems, I feel like this is a really poor time to launch, especially with Valorant, poised to shoot them in the face.
They are in the dominant position, I feel like, in terms of this competitive team-based shooter, Valorant, not Crucible, just to be clear. And so it feels like the absolute worst time to roll a game out like this. But I think you hit the nail on the head. They have so much money that I think they can afford to stumble out of the gate a little bit and then hopefully correct. They don't necessarily need to launch something that's polished and has its own little chunk of the market already. Because if it loses money at the gate, who cares? They'll probably make it back within 30 minutes of people Amazon shopping around the country. It doesn't matter.
No, you're right. It doesn't matter at all. And when you look at it, it does look pretty. It looks nice. It looks refined. You've got like hamsters and Zoras and robots. So why not? It looks interesting, but I guess from just a storytelling perspective, I can't see anything that compels me to, want to dig in deeper. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is going to be the next thing that's going to sweep the nation when it drops.
Yeah, May 20th it comes out. It's free to play, so the risk of trying it is virtually non-existent. It's coming through Steam, so again, it will probably have some pretty wide distribution. We'll see how it does at launch.
JD, speaking of wide distribution.
Oh, God.
Get ready to take those sliders all the way to the right, buddy. So this is a gaming news story that took the world by storm. All of Twitter
it did.
All of Twitter was a flux. It was just incredible. If you don't know what I'm talking about Cyberpunk revealed some details about their character customization, and deep within that system, within the information, was a nugget about genitalia. So your character, you'll be able to choose your genitalia, and sometimes you can have combinations of them. You can choose size, width. There's a lot to this. But when I sent a friend a text to the story, just a link to it, he basically said some poor fool had to animate those dogs, which to me is glorious. So JD, how did this story come to you? How did you find it?
I got a text from a friend that said, hey, did you hear about that cyber dong story yet? And I was at work, so I had literally no idea what was happening. So then I checked a text from you, which had an incredible tweet, which said, I'm going to have the biggest cyber dong the world has ever seen. This slider's going all the way to the right, baby. With then a link to the story so I could finally see what was happening. And yeah, this is wild, actually. Your friend who said that someone had to model all this is so spot on. I feel so terrible for that animator. And then at the same time, we're going to have a lot of fun with this, I think.
We really are. So they have, this is a direct quote, that they have customizations that include depictions of breasts, buttocks, and genitalia, various sizes and combinations of genitals. So I think the combinations of genitals
Combination.
is the most interesting part there. And I think there's going to be like maybe piercings too. Someone had that in a text. I haven't seen that
That's what I
anywhere.
said.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't seen that anywhere in the actual stuff, but I mean, if you can have the robo, genitalia, why not have crazy, I don't know, Tron cyber discs hanging off of it? Who knows?
I said that I want to have 2 dongs with like just piercings top to bottom on them. And then my friend texted me and said he wants to make it as large as possible, but put a small top hat on it.
So just so you guys are aware, we're going to be following this story very closely as we can. Clearly, obviously, as we move on. G Fuel, do not let this affect your your perception of the pod. We are not brought to you by G Fuel in any way. But I mean, I
Not
feel
yet.
like Cyberdong's brought to you by G Fuel, the hype
Has a
sauce.
good ring to it.
Yeah, it does. It sounds right.
G Fuel already has this sort of dystopian future cyberpunk feel in the name, G Fuel, right? Like, I feel like in 30 to 40 years, we are not only going to be drinking G Fuel, but I'm going to be fueling up my Tesla Model X5 130 Alpha 4 with G Fuel. So, yeah, I mean, it just makes sense that they would hop on this train now and align themselves with the GamePitch brand, the Cyberdong brand, and G Fuel altogether. A new holy trinity of awfulness, if you will.
JD, whoa, wait, I'm getting a call from G Fuel headquarters. Oh my God, the G in G Fuel stands for genitals? You've given us the green light? Hell yes.
I knew it. Oh, God, time to order some more G Fuel right now. They're the fuelist. All right, I think it's time to move on.
Let's do it.
Let's talk a little bit about Guerrilla Games, and let's talk a little bit about Horizon Zero Dawn. The first one was beautiful. It's still beautiful many years later. It was always sort of propped up as this benchmark in graphic fidelity. They absolutely nailed how pretty the game looked, and it ran beautifully. And so it's no surprise that Guerrilla Games wants to keep that going for the next gen. So as they develop what is almost certainly under development now, but it is still under wraps, is a sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. They did have a job posting for a, quote, technical vegetation artist. And in that job posting, it mentions that whoever gets hired for the job will be working on the Horizon series, and that the applicants' primary goal is to create stunning environments that, quote, feature industry benchmark graphics. So it doesn't explicitly say, hey, you're going to be working on the sequel, but it's very likely that that's what they're doing. They're probably not working on Killzone. They're probably not working on SOCOM. They're probably working on Horizon Zero Dawn. And this is great. I mean, the first one was gorgeous and it ran beautifully. I'd be excited to see whatever they can cook up for PS5.
This is right in line with that other job posting with the creature creation or the creature character artist thing. So yes, 100%. I think this has to be what it is. And Guerrilla Games is known for having those, benchmark, like you said, industry benchmark graphics. Anytime they showed off a Killzone trailer, it was to be like, oh, game footage in like that was Sony's like thing. They were like, look at how good the PlayStation is. And then before they would do like one of the montages, it was always Guerrilla Games leading that with their impressive graphics.
I think this is terrific. I'll be extremely excited when they finally give us some sort of details for a sequel. We talked about last week or the week before, hopefully that there's a co-op mode in here. And I think, if they can make a beautiful game that has some sort of awesome co-op that focuses on a story, they'll obviously have another hit on their hands.
Look, I don't want to commit to this right now, but GamePitch plays on YouTube. We could co-op this Horizon Zero Deuce together, my friend.
While drinking a G Fuel.
Yeah, of course. Oh my God. Moving on. The next story is about Microsoft and their ineptitude back in the day. And when you're a big corporation, of course, you can have these things slip through the cracks. You can get excited about something that maybe is not the truth, and you just might not know in certain cases. So this story, it's a brilliant, perfect story. But the headline is, Microsoft execs thought that they owned the Donkey Kong IP franchise after they acquired Rare. So if you don't remember, Rare was one of the biggest developers for the N64, putting out things like Perfect Dark, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day. I believe, did they do GoldenEye as well? Yeah, I think they did.
They did. Yep.
Yeah. Jet Force Gemini. They put out a lot of good stuff.
They put out a lot.
Yeah, they were like my favorite games on the 64, but
No
they also
doubt.
put out Donkey Kong 64. But when the when the Microsoft execs came to tour the studio, tour Rare, they got very excited because there were posters everywhere, with Donkey Kong on it. Upon seeing the posters, they started to get excited about owning that franchise until Rare corrected them. So it's just beautiful that the top brass at Microsoft, they thought that they were just like, oh yeah, man, you see some posters on the wall. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like, hey, come acquire the GamePitch podcast when GeoFuel comes to tour the offices.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to see posters of like Michael Jordan and,
Yep.
we've acquired the Jordan brand. You're right, GeoFuel, you did it.
The bargain of a century for $20 and some Jimmy John sandwiches. I love this because, obviously the people who negotiated the deal knew exactly what was going to be transferred. They knew, right?
Mhm.
And so it's so funny to me that somehow that communication skipped the next level down as these executives are walking through the Rare office and they're just giddy with joy over things that are obviously not going to happen. It's just funny to me that somehow this line of communication was broken. And these people were so stoked that they were going to own one of Nintendo's most valuable franchises.
I love the idea of just like Bill Gates walking the hallways of Rare, just like, great. Yes. Oh, the monkey with the tie. I'm into it.
Wow, that is a really, really good Bill Gates impersonation. Great job, Eli.
Yeah. Glad you're so supportive. It was a 4 at best.
Oh, okay, let's talk about Fortnite. Fortnite is still crushing it, right? So they tweeted a couple days ago that they have over 350 million registered players.
Crazy.
In the month of April, just April, there was a combined 3.2 billion, with a B, billion hours played in game. That's disgusting. That's insane. Yes, quarantine certainly helps compound that number, but the levels of sweat, I can't even imagine. Okay, anyway, that's going off. Let's talk a little bit about the non-sweaty side. So right now, Epic Games is doing Party Royale, which is all these concerts that are taking place in a new playlist they've created called Party Royale. And so the whole idea is there's no guns, there's no building mats, right? Like, you're just supposed to kick it and have fun. It's sweat-free. It's all chill. And so starting actually last night on May 8th, they had a concert that took place. And some of the musical guests that they've been able to attract are Dylan Francis, Steve Aoki, Deadmau5 is there. I think they have a couple others that are queued up. They had one that just took place with Diplo. So we talked about this a couple weeks ago with these musical guests coming into Fortnite and Epic evolving the game as more than just a game. It's becoming this platform.
Mhm.
And this certainly is continuing that, right? It's so wild to me that they've created this game that was literally just all shooting and building and an absolute sweat fest. And now this version of it is, just come kick it and listen to some rave music with your buddies because you can't be in person. So you might as well just do this digital rave in Fortnite. What future are we in?
So I'm seeing two paths. That's where I wanted to go with this. I actually see a path where they modify some more of the game mechanics and the things you can already do into like a multiplayer suite where it's like stuff where you're just running around as your Fortnite character, but you're able to do Mario Party style games. And like maybe they do like a carnival comes to the Fortnite island and it's just like an amusement park almost of mini games that you can play, compete to win prizes, and like the same thing, like even if they just do like a ducks going by and you're shooting them game and you earn virtual tickets and they basically make a Chuck E. Cheese inside of Fortnite. I can see that being a path on the gameplay side. The other thing I can see, I believe this will happen within the next year or year and a half or 2 years, that we will see a TV show completely stream its episodes in Fortnite. Like they'll premiere the episodes. Like I think this is like a Quibi might do this, or like an Apple or an Amazon, like someone who's trying to get into that conversation that Hulu, Disney Plus, them together and Netflix are in. And I think that they're just like, hey, we're premiering all of our episodes every Friday, 7 o'clock in Fortnite. And then the episodes go to the service the next morning or something like that. I could see that happen.
That's nuts to me. So let me talk about those two things real quick. First of all, is it too much of like a fellow kids moment for a big brand to be like, we're going to put our show in Fortnite, right? It's like, is it like that? How do you do, fellow kids? Like, I don't know how I feel about that. The one thing I do agree on, though, is that you said that they are going to build a carnival within Fortnite. And I think that's, like a Chuck E. Cheese in the game. And I think that's perfect given how many 12-year-olds are currently playing the game. I think that is the absolute best brand alignment ever. Chuck E. Cheese, if you open a digital franchise within Fortnite, we obviously we're due some compensation because we just talked about this on the pod. That's a verbal trademark, okay? So
when you chuck the cheese, do it in Fortnite.
Oh my God, no, I don't like that.
Okay.
No, you're right. This is more than just this one event. It is certainly going to be an evolution of the game as they keep the live game service part going, the regular sweat fest. This obviously is testing the waters for very different avenues that they can take this as a platform, not just a game. So I'll be curious to see how this evolves.
There's no ceiling on Fortnite. It's incredible.
It really isn't. There's no ceiling. It's something that has a very long future ahead of it.
Yeah, it's never going away. And I never thought World of Warcraft would ever go away. And then it's just vanilla released again. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like
time is cyclical.
Yes, time is a flat circle. Russ Cole was right. Actually, speaking of flat circles and being cyclical, we're going back to the original Mortal Kombat for our next story. On Twitter, there was some footage that was released of the actual like footage that they used, the mocap, that not necessarily mocap, but they had real actors doing kung fu moves and doing things. One of my favorite ones was like how they had like those fake stairs and the person on them like doing the kicks. That was incredible. But I believe that back in the day they would like take this footage and then like almost like you would have a light box and they would trace over it.
Yeah, to make the style.
Yeah, because the computers weren't there yet. So that it was just mind-blowing to see like real people in the costumes, and then also to see what I like, who had this, like, where was it? Was this like a VHS in their garage that they just kept and then they like recorded it? It's just so cool to see a seminal foundational game. Like, I don't think you can argue Mortal Kombat's place in history in the 90s. Just to see this little nugget of its creation was beautiful. It made me happy as a gamer.
I love the idea that you just said that some mom was cleaning out this guy's bedroom finally and was like, I'm throwing away all these VHS tapes. And he's like, no, mom, I need those still. I love that thought that this absolute pinnacle gem of gaming history was potentially wrapped up in someone's basement. How did we just now see these? How is this just now coming out?
Well, this is what happened. Ed Boon finally moved out of his mom's basement. So that's how the tapes came to light.
Finally. Oh.
So sorry, Ed.
That's incredible. A less incredible thing. So this week, Tokyo Game Show announced that they are canceling their in-person portion of the event for 2020. And they're going to move, like many others, to doing an online event. And so, it's sad. I mean, this has been a show that's been going on since early 2000s. I think like 2001, maybe 2002, something like that. Actually, I think it was a bit before that, actually. Late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember for sure. Either way, it's been going on. It's become a staple of the industry, with half of it devoted to just the game industry and then half of it open for the wider public. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how they adapt to a digital format. And I think it plays into a narrative that we've talked about a lot on this show, as we have these online format shows that will be very heavily featured over the next 12 months. It definitely takes into consideration what the value is of having that show in person is anymore. When you think about not only Tokyo Game Show, but especially E3 has been sort of our pinnacle example. What it needs to change with that show for a physical event to still make sense when so much of it's going to be done online, particularly this year.
We have to adjust to this new online culture, this online convention culture that we're going to have. San Diego Comic-Con just announced their online digital event. We of course talked about the GDC summer thing, that their event being online now, the summer that Jeff Keighley has as well. So I don't know, it just it feels weird because it's like I guess, less hype. We weren't there anyway, but it's just
Right.
sad that this is going, like, these things might be going away, maybe forever, maybe not forever, but like at least for the foreseeable future. And TGS was something that was important to me because it's every year where Square would do the most of their announcements. So it's where I would get
Yeah.
my confusing Kingdom Hearts trailers that had all kinds of words like chasers and demons and flashes of CG that was never going to be in any game in any sense ever. So I will miss it.
I think you say you'll miss it, but then at some point, those trailers only brought you up for the game to then bring you plummeting back down. So I think at least this time, without anything to bring you really high up on this hype, at least you're going to stay nice and grounded this year when Square eventually and inevitably disappoints you.
JD, I like pain.
Pain for pleasure.
Let's talk about our next story here. And I guess the Borderlands themselves, they do feature quite a bit of pain. So if you
They
didn't
do.
hear, the Borderlands movie is moving forward, and renowned actress Kate Blanchett, she is reportedly in talks to play Lilith. Now, Lilith, she's one of the main characters in the series. She's one of the sirens. She's flamey fire phoenix powers and all that stuff. Now, not to say that I pictured Lilith as a younger person, and not to say that Kate's too old to play the role. It's just she's not who I would have pictured as Lilith, but that's cool that they're going in a different direction, maybe giving us a different interpretation. I don't know if she's the lead or if she's more in a, what's Odin. Who's Odin in the Thor series? What's his name? He's also in Westworld. He is amazing. He's old. He's a
Are you talking about Anthony Hopkins?
I am talking about Sir Anthony Hopkins. How dare you not call him by his full name? But Anthony Hopkins, he comes and brings some of that gravitas and lens. Shut up, Shady. You don't know.
You're like, I say his name and you say, "Oh, that guy, he's old," and because I leave off the "sir," I'm the one that's wrong, getting yelled at.
Whatever. I'm trying to brush past the stupidity of my brain. But Sir Anthony Hopkins, he brings that gravitas to Thor, like, there's a legit like Shakespearean actor in this, and I think that's kind of like Kate Blanchett's role here. You've seen her, of course, in Thor Ragnarok. She's in Ocean's 8. She's in all kinds of movies. Just of course, the Lord of the Rings series, and I'm just like I keep saying like blockbusters, but there's like a lot of like serious, real, like for real, like Oscar movies that she's in as well. So she's an excellent actress.
Let's back up slightly. You said that it wasn't who you would have pictured at first. Who would you have pictured at first? If you could pick anyone, who would you have wanted?
I guess someone with more action chops, maybe. Because I don't know if I believe that Kate has the action chops to like a Kate Beckinsale. Like she, I feel like she's like running around like murdering fools. And I've always like pictured Lilith as the strongest, like the Jean Grey, the Phoenix Force in the Borderlands series.
Okay.
She was always like the one who was like there to wreck the most shop. And I don't know if Kate Blanchett's a shop wrecker. Of course, we saw her do that in Thor Ragnarok, so I'm probably very wrong, but I don't know. She just didn't translate to me as Lilith.
Okay. I was just curious. I was just interested to know what your thought was. I kind of like it. I think it's a very cool cast move. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier that she is going to have a very like a temperamental sort of effect, I think, on the cast as a whole and bring a very different level of performance into the production, which I think is good because I think you want that balance of people who are very established, who have this very commanding presence on a set and have these industry ties. I don't think Kate Blanchett and Eli Roth have a long history working together, not off the top of my head, but just that they're both very respected in the industry. And I think that will be good then if they mix that with some younger up and coming talent or, some fresher faces we haven't seen. I think that there could be a really fun dynamic there in play. So while maybe I don't picture her as Lilith, maybe if I look at it as a grander scope of production, it makes more sense. So I have to frame it. I think you and I think we have to frame it differently to make it make a little more sense in our brains.
Yeah, no, and you're right, because if you're casting a leader, you probably do want someone who is older.
Right.
Yeah, just to be the lead, for it to be convincing, especially if they're going to lead a team of younger, fresh faces, kind of like you said there. I don't know if you've seen Umbrella Academy.
I haven't.
Okay, so there's a guy in Umbrella Academy. He can like talk to dead people, and then he goes to like Vietnam and all this. But I want that guy to be Mordecai. So I'll look at the actor.
Oh.
I'll send you a picture. People who've seen Umbrella Academy will know who I'm talking about. But if they're going maybe older than I would have thought for Lilith, maybe they can go younger for Mordecai. And I really like the guy from Umbrella Academy. I feel like he could pull off an excellent Mordecai.
Sweet. I'll look forward to seeing that from you. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, let's hit that last story, buddy.
Last story, guys. Pick 11, and then we're going to move into our scouting report. So, this one is interesting. If you're a fan of the Half-Life series, then you may know a little bit about how in the game there were hidden watermelons. And so this gave birth to this entire melon hunting culture where people were looking to find them. And so in Half-Life Alyx, there's only one, and you can't even find it unless you cheat. And which in and of itself is hilarious that they've put the thought and care into it to make this melon still in there. It's a much higher res model than the lemons of Half-Life 2. So it's really nice. It's a nice looking melon, to be quite honest with you. I love that it's hidden behind a cheat code. And it also makes me wonder if Valve just cut the budget for melons from Half-Life 2, which had 6 melons in the game, and you didn't have to cheat to find them. And now there's only one. Why take the time to develop this entirely new asset and then hide it so deep? If the only thing I can think of is that someone came there with a balance sheet that had more melons on it, and Valve just put their foot down and said, there's no way that we have the time or budget to implement this many melons in the game. And you know what? Does it detract? I don't know. Does it make the game worse? It's possible. It's hard to say for sure.
I like the QA testing's made feedback just being, there's too many melons. You gotta cut that down.
Can you imagine if like it was all bug hunters, like their QA people were like, yeah, this level's working great, except this melon is in here. And if we get near the melon, the entire build breaks. And then that poor asset artist who poured, I can only imagine 6 to 8 months worth of time developing this absolutely delicious looking melon, all their hard work hidden behind a cheat code. You know, it's almost enough to give a red card, but it's only melons. So I think we're just going to let it slide.
Let's slide right on out of the fastballs and into our new segment this week in Animal Crossing. We have so many stories. I don't know if you want to do a lightning round, JD, but I know we got to tell the people what's happening in the world of AC.
We do. And I think lightning round works best. So let's just rapid fire our way through these. First things first, player this week remade Disney's Haunted Mansion in Animal Crossing, and it is incredible. They have the original music dubbed over the video. They've made their house super spooky. They utilize the in-game emotes perfectly. It really was a ton of fun to watch.
No, it's beautiful. And the next story is about the continuous updates that are coming to Animal Crossing. I know, are really going to be just playing Animal Crossing for the foreseeable forever. So them promising in an earnings call, I believe, that there's just going to be constant updates to this game. It's just a win for you, buddy.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked. I can't get enough of the game. I can't get enough of the little things that they add. I am extremely excited to continue playing this game for my day of days. Okay, one other thing that people are getting really creative with in Animal Crossing is using the tiny cliffs on the northern part of the island to force perspective to make it look like the island itself is on this higher plane and that there's a lot more island in the distance, and it's really cool. You have to have a very specific island layout to do it, but if you can, it's really neat. Have you seen this?
I have, man. Just like, oh, look at the little baby lighthouse and the mini cars, and they're off in the distance. We don't got streets here, but we got cars in a parking lot. Like,
yeah, they're like putting the lighthouse or like the little pagodas in the background, and it's like, oh man, this looks great.
It looks legit.
Something else that looked amazing. So another Animal Crossing New Horizons player recreated the Sinnoh region from Pokemon. How? What? Like, I don't. How?
They're so talented, man. They're just so freaking talented.
My island looks like a dumpster fire still, and then there's just these people that are just absolutely blowing it away. I don't get it.
Yeah, man. Like, the game has we talked about Fortnite having, no ceiling. Even though this game is so limited from a feature standpoint on purpose to be simplistic and enjoyable, like a pick up and play experience, there is just no limit to people's creativity within it. And I really hope Nintendo leans into that almost in a Mario Maker way to give people a little bit more tools.
Me too. I absolutely hope for that. Next little bit of Animal Crossing news. The Detroit Lions used Animal Crossing to announce their 2020 schedule.
Did you watch the video?
No, I didn't. I saw the headline. I haven't looked yet.
It's so impressive because they like this. It's a long video, and they like go and they like do stuff where like they'll shake a tree and it's like a peach, and then he eats the peach. Like basically, they're roasting every other team in Animal Crossing with what they're gonna do to them. Like there's like a person in all Green Bay stuff, and they're like hitting them with the freaking like the nets, and then they're eating the peach to be like, oh, we're gonna wreck the Atlanta Falcons, and peaches are an Atlanta thing. Like it's so like creative. Like when I said the creativity, I can't believe that Animal Crossing has transcended to this level of pop culture that an NFL team announced their entire schedule inside of the game.
Yeah, I love it. I love to see the way other brands and people outside the industry are interacting with Animal Crossing as a vessel. And it's truly, truly cool. What's not quite as cool, though, is the next bit, which is the item duplication glitch. There was one in the first build of the game that came out, and now there's another one that is not quite patched yet. Do I have that right?
Yes.
That sucks.
No cheating for JD, right?
I'm sorry. I play the game pure, and time travel, sure, do it. That doesn't bother me as much because I get it's a real time clock for the game, and sometimes you want to hunt a bug that only comes out early morning, but you may work overnights, or you want to do something that's only at night, like look for shooting stars, but maybe you work overnights, right? Like there's moments where I think time travel is not so much cheating as it is making sure that people can experience everything. Duplicating items with the glitch is not in that same vein at all. So that I will say mini red card.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. You're an honorable maid.
Thank you so much.
Facebook is also trying to stay an honorable maid.
They are confusing people talking about weeds, the weeds that you pull up in Animal Crossing, with pot, and censoring people in online Facebook groups and in Facebook posts, thinking that they are talking about the still illegal in some states plant. That's actually hilarious.
It kills me, dude. Like the things that Facebook should be censoring from my feed that they're not, just right. the not facts. It's just people being like, the murder hornets are coming into your home and they're singing a lullaby to your babies to fall asleep, and I'm just like, right, that seems real and factual. When someone just like, hey, I'll give you $20 if you pluck all the weeds on my island. Like,
Facebook is like, you're going to jail now.
Okay, let's get to the last story here. There was a horror movie trailer that was made, and we talked about limited creativity, but I think I'll tweet out the link on the GamePitch Twitter, but it's
awesome.
It's incredible. And that's, really impressive coming from you who hates horror things, but it was like so funny. Just like, I'm in the island now. Like the meat nopes and like the talk during the text works perfectly in a horror setting. I was dying laughing, dude.
I was too. That's why I could watch it, because I know it was meant to be really scary. I also love the quotes that were coming over from like Tom Nook and like Blathers that were like, this will make you piss yourself, like Blathers. We are going to tweet the link out to that on the GamePitch Pod Twitter. Check that out because it is truly awesome. And I think that wraps up This Week in Animal Crossing. That wraps up the fastballs. And so we're going to move right into our scouting report, right?
We have some big stories to talk about this week. First up is our Inside Xbox event that happened Thursday. You and I did some predictions for it, and we did not do very well at all.
Yeah, no, that is putting it extremely nice. Very gentle, because what truly happened is we did awful. We really were way more ambitious than I think we should have been. And also, I don't know if we were, because the way that Microsoft was hyping this was that this was going to be a big third-party showing. And I don't know if that is how I would describe it.
Yes, we sucked. We got goose eggs. We zeroed out. Like, I get it. But also,
we're terrible.
Yes, let's acknowledge that. But then also, we were messaged to incorrectly, and even Aaron Greenberg had to come out and kind of respond to a lot of the feedback, because there was a lot of negativity that came out from this, when really all they did was show off a bunch of cool games that maybe wouldn't have got this same spotlight if E3 was still happening, that they did an entire, 25-minute thing to show off some, I wouldn't say reputable, but like not AAA devs.
Yeah, these were like indie or even double A, right? Which
Yeah.
is fantastic. And there was some cool stuff. Like, I don't think the argument is that they didn't show us good looking games. I think the argument and the a lot of the internet outcry is that they were like, oh, this is going to be all focused on our third party developer community. Oh, and then it was like, oh, and we're going to show something from Ubisoft and we're going to show Valhalla. And then people are like, oh, yeah, like that is Ubisoft's like crowning gem right now. So if that's the level of lead in that they left us with, like you went from Assassin's Creed Valhalla to a game called Bright Memory Infinite. What is that? And not to say it doesn't look cool. Again, I'm not like ragging on any of these games. And certainly I'm very, very happy that they all got a platform. What I don't think was approached right was the way Microsoft, like you said, they didn't market it to us right. They did not set the right expectation. And I think that is the core issue here.
No, you're 100% right. I completely agree with you. And they know that too, because they've been so good with their messaging and they've come out loud and often about how, hey, our bad, we'll message better. But even the thing that they got from Ubisoft, because Ubisoft kind of set them up to fail too. They're like, hey,
Yeah.
gameplay reveal. And everyone was like, hey, your gameplay trailer doesn't have gameplay. It was
Right.
like a cinematic, not cinematic, but it was just snippets of the game in motion, but not necessarily being played. So like
100%.
what defines gameplay? And I think that's why people were so mad. And then all the Sony people on my Twitter were just shitting all over Xbox. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that this is a completely crap on them, but I wish they would have said, hey, we're going to premiere a lot of games you haven't seen before from people who you maybe don't know, but get excited about this new stuff. And I was live tweeting it the whole time. And I was just like, man, can there be like some rainbow or sunshine in any of these games? Because it was all gritty, monster, freaking, I don't know, tendrils and tentacles coming out of eye sockets as blood tears. And I was like, this is not for me, guys.
They're like, it's real bad outside in real life, and this holiday season, it's going to continue being bad inside too.
Yeah, man, you nailed it. There was some news that people were excited about that actually came from this. In some of the Assassin's Creed messaging, they did say that the game would be shorter and smaller than Odyssey because people had said that the last game was a little too bloated. So that's kind of one of the things that came out from this. And in my hype for this Xbox event, I started watching a lot of Xbox tech demos and stuff like that for the Xbox Series X. And I found out this thing about the HDR that I didn't know. It's basically like how it can update and change the lighting, the bloom through the HDR stuff and through the what's it? Not the threading, not the tethering. What,
the ray tracing?
That thing. Yep. See, yeah. I can't even freaking. Basically, that can upgrade old games. They showed Fusion Frenzy and they showed Halo 5 without having anything optimized or changed, like completely updating the visuals of the game. And I was like, wow, this is like incredible. And I can't wait to see how developers use these tools in like old games played on the Xbox Series X getting the update.
In the midst of people kind of being upset with the way that they presented this, there was some really cool stuff that got missed. So everything that they showed at this event is what they are branding as Xbox Series X optimized. And so what that means is all of them are 4K. All of them will run at 120 frames per second, and all of them can take advantage of that hardware DirectX ray tracing, right? That is super cool, and that absolutely kind of got a little lost in the messaging. What also got a little lost is all of these take advantage of smart delivery. So not only the first-party stuff, but all of these third-party games are going to have smart delivery, including Valhalla and including Cyberpunk 2077. So all of that is super positive, and it just feels like Microsoft had a lot to say, and I don't know if they were quite sure how to say it in this format.
Yeah, in this arena here, definitely. And the one thing that that was also on this is a lot of this stuff is coming to Game Pass. So they have so many things that you and I are really passionate about: the smart delivery, the Game Pass, all that stuff, the optimized for Series X. But that I guess it is the forefront, but it's not the forefront as well. Like I get why the internet's mad, but the internet should have like also been happy about, dang, Game Pass is going to be legit, and so is the smart delivery, and so is the
Yeah, I think so. Here's the thing. I think Microsoft every year puts a lot of eggs in the E3 basket and they make
mm,
all these announcements all at once in E3. And so it's easy for maybe something that would have been like, like these games maybe would have made it into that sort of little indie reel that they tend to do during E3, right? They show
mm-hmm.
big blockbuster, and they're like, hey, we've got another 20 awesome indie games. And then there's like the indie reel, right? Where it's like that sort of 5-minute video. Here's a bunch of indie games. Had this been an E3 presentation, that probably would have been where we'd see a lot of these games. But they doing it this way, I think they're kind of learning a little bit more about how to approach it. And the good news is this is just sort of the first bit of it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
now, kind of right before this event, they announced what they're calling Xbox 2020. And Xbox 2020 is basically that they are going to be having a monthly event where they're going to talk about what's going on for Xbox this year. And so a little bit of that is stuff like this, where we're talking about third party, maybe double A or indie style games. In July, they've said that we're going to see some first party stuff. And I think in between that, we're going to get little bits of news from other third party developers that they're going to bring in. Maybe we'll get an Activision 2020 event in September, right? Or an EA focused one in June. There's a lot of potential here because there's a lot of stuff we haven't even seen, which is like Project X Cloud. We haven't really got a lot of news on that. So
Mm-hmm.
this is cool. It's a cool format. And I think, not to prattle on too much about it, I think they're just trying to figure it out now too, because it's not the way that they would have liked to have this message. And I think it will only get better now.
And it sucks because Xbox is so transparent and upfront about this stuff that they do, I think, catch a little more flack when the messaging is off or wrong. I do love what what they're trying to do. I respect, the transparency and actually talking to us like Sony is not, and being
Right.
very protective. But they did say, hey, in July, that's when you're going to see first party, and Halo's a part of that. So I could not be more hype.
Oh,
June,
yeah.
maybe let's get something a little more exciting in June, maybe one announcement, or I wish they did have at the end a one more thing kind of moment. They didn't,
Mm.
but July, that's when we're going to get those. So let's move away from Xbox and let's get into some financial information. There was a lot of the earnings calls. Nintendo had a bunch of information come out. So did EA, Activision, and some of the other companies as well. But JD, do you want to start with EA?
Yeah. And let's start with my favorite part of what came from what we've heard here from EA, which is that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, one, crushed it, right? So what they confirmed during this earnings call is that Fallen Order was way ahead of what they predicted it would be. They expected it to sell 10 million units. And so for them to say that it was way ahead of those expectations is terrific. Respawn's amazing, and they are also hiring even more. So I think we're going to start to see some more stuff come from them all about Star Wars. And they are really focusing on Jedi Fallen Order as a pinnacle launch point for a bunch of new Star Wars games. That is amazing. And I mean, you played it and I've played it, and it's they nailed it, right? Like
Yeah.
they crushed it.
Yeah, especially as a first effort and of something that seemed to come together very quickly. That may have I've always held the theory that it was put together off the pieces of whatever Amy Hennig's, the 1313 or whatever game she was making. I feel like this has pieces of that. It was like Frankenstein together, but it does
Ooh.
work and it's awesome. And they even announced some new DLC that came out for May the Fourth be with you, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. They have like new arenas, new costumes, new, not like a new story chapter, but just like fun updates and a reason to come back in and enjoy the combat once again.
Yeah, it's like a new game plus mode. They added in that May the 4th update, which also is just really nice to see a studio that appreciates the brand and the IP enough to time an update for May the 4th. So I think that this series is in terrific hands with Respawn. I really do. I think that they are clearly showing that they care about the source material, what they're pulling from the classic Star Wars universe, and also applying that to the new material that they're building fresh for these games. all of that is terrific. So that's kind of the first bit of what we've heard from EA. Do you want to lead us into the next bit?
I'm really excited that because initially there was a CEO over at EA who said that like Nintendo Switch wasn't where EA games should be. Like that wasn't their lead platform. That wasn't that they didn't have any urgency to make games for the Switch because they just didn't see the profitability in it. And it's great to see them proven wrong. Nintendo's financials came out and they talked a lot about, you know, I think we've addressed this as well, like how much Animal Crossing is sold. We talked about that last week, and then how Nintendo's talked about their digital future when it comes to the Pokemon releases and the Smash Bros releases. And Nintendo, right, of course, is doing excellent. Their hardware sales are well above, and so are their software sales for this year. But all of this means that the publishers like EA have to put their games on the system. So there have been rumors for a long time about a Mass Effect HD trilogy, and the rumor hounds, they do say that that is coming to Switch. So I cannot wait for that. I like, especially if it is like an upres or if they do anything to make it, you know, a little bit more stable, especially on Switch. It'll probably play better on PS5 and Xbox Series X or the One and the Fore. But I want Mass Effect on the go. I want it in my hands. Like I just need it. And then there are a slew of other EA games that can come to Switch. Of course, the sports games, but they've talked about more games coming to Switch because that's where the gamers are.
Do you think would they even need to change the Mass Effect trilogy for you to buy it? Like if it was just the same exact trilogy that you have played, but they just put it on Switch, would you still buy
it? What kind of question is that? It could run worse than it ran on my Xbox 360 and I'd still buy it.
Probably would.
It probably would. Yeah. The question is, if they put Andromeda on it and it's all 4, will you still buy it?
I'd have to. I'd have to. So another cool piece is that Electronic Arts COO Blake Jorgensen said that they are going to be making current generation games have the ability to be upgraded free to run on the next gen hardware. Not explicitly saying PS5, Xbox Series X, but kind of what else could it be, right? Now, the one thing that they didn't really specify and what Jorgensen didn't specify here is if that's going to come through Microsoft's new smart delivery feature or if they're going to do it through some sort of EA proprietary portal, you know, maybe like Origin has on the PC and they have EA access, right? Is it going to look something more like that? And I can only hope it doesn't. I don't understand why they would, at least on the Xbox side, build an entirely new mechanism when Microsoft has already built something and is heavily marketing it. I can only hope that EA kind of does the right thing here and utilizes smart delivery for this next gen upgrade. It just makes the most sense.
I think it's a daddy Sony is like putting the thumb down and EA doesn't want to piss him off. Because why wouldn't you say smart delivery if that's not going to be the case? And like you said, it's probably because of some third party proprietary like redeem tokens kind of BS that we're going to have to deal with. But it seemed just short-sighted to not say smart delivery because that's already the standard that has been set by Microsoft.
Right.
And like that is the thing when because Microsoft was first and they came up with the branding and the idea, like when games inevitably do the upgrade thing for PS5, if they do, people are just going to call it smart delivery. Like, you know, you say, you Google it, you're searching for something, but you say, hey, I'm going to Google that. So I just think that they've won the term battle already. And yeah, of course, EA has to do this, at least with the sports titles, at least with the annualized stuff. They don't have to do it with everything they have in their catalog, but I would definitely say the sports stuff that people buy annually makes sense to do it with.
I agree for sure. Do we have anything else on EA, or do we want to move on to Activision Blizzard, talk a little bit about their earnings and kind of some teases that they've put out there?
Let's move on to the company that should get all the flack that EA gets, but does not for some reason.
So Activision Blizzard announced that in their Q1, their financial Q1 of 2020, which is their January to March, they line up calendar, they generated slightly under $1 billion in revenue. They were at $956 million, and that mostly came from microtransactions.
It hurts my heart
So it's a lot of in-game content from Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and especially a ton of content through Call of Duty Warzone. That represented a massive amount of growth, right? They did 956 million on a year-over-year basis of 794 million from first quarter of 2019. That's huge. That's massive. And they reported that Call of Duty Warzone is now at 60 million players unique since March 11th to now. So they're just crushing on this free to play Call of Duty Warzone title and making a lot of money from it, like making fistfuls of cash.
And I put this in our show notes. They're the Death Star. I so don't want them to win, but they're unstoppable. Like there's just no way to beat them. This one of the things that was buried in the reports there. This was the best selling Call of Duty. The Modern
Yeah,
Warfare was and I can't fathom that this many years later that they could still be that people. Or I guess it's that thing where like you turn on a sitcom at night to like fall asleep, or like you're watching like, oh, I'm gonna watch some episodes of The Office. Like, is Call of Duty a comfort food for people? Like,
I
just
think so.
because I can't fathom, and maybe it's one of those things. It's like an addiction to nicotine. It's like you just buy it every year because you have to. It's like that thing that it's like almost like we're mammals, we're pack animals, we move, we have habits, and it's just like the same thing where someone just like always picks their nose after someone coughs. Someone always buys Call of Duty after someone says, "Yo, bro, what up?" And he's like, "Oh, I gotta buy Call of Duty." It's like
Oh no.
oh
no. Just immediately log on to the PlayStation store and just buy another copy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're unstoppable, man.
They so you hit on it, right? For the game's life cycle, Modern Warfare has sold more units and has more active players than any Call of Duty at this point after its release in the history of the franchise. And that in it's just crazy. I think, and Activision even recognizes it in their earnings. They say that they believe that this is driven by upgrades in Warzone and in Modern Warfare, and its rising demand amidst shelter-at-home conditions across the world. So we've said it, analysts have said it. I think it's almost a given, and it's interesting to see it formally recognized in this earnings report that this current pandemic certainly isn't hurting the game industry right now. And I think $1 billion in revenue almost in this Q1, it's not even the holiday quarter, right? It is the beginning of the year. You might argue you can see some spillover from people maybe spending like gift cards they got at Christmas or things like that from December to January, right? There might be a little bit of an add-on effect there, but this is not, school is not typically out. This is not, maybe 1 week of spring break. This is much larger. It is a much grander scale.
I wonder what percentage of gamers this is the one game they buy per year. Because there's that thing where like people talk about casual gamers or hardcore gamers, but I think there are some people out there who like they just are just dedicated to the one game. Or
Yeah.
like maybe let's say like the pie for a guy or a girl out there, their gameplay chart like is 60% of it just Call of Duty of their purchases, and then the rest of that pie is just made up between like random things that they see or their friends tell them to play throughout the year. But they are always going to invest 60% of their game money and their game time into a Call of Duty, because that's crazy if they have that kind of mind share.
I mean, it's hard to say that they don't, knowing what we're seeing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to piggyback that, not shocking at all, we're going to see Call of Duty Warzone move to next gen, PS5, Xbox Series X. They've come out to say we're absolutely going to have Warzone around for a while. And so as soon as those new consoles are out, we're going to find a way to get on there and support them. That is not surprising considering what they're making here. People who are that early adopter for the new generation of hardware, typically those are the people that have a little bit of extra money to put towards gaming, right? And so you definitely would want to capitalize on that segment. And certainly Blizzard Activision is going to do that. I mean, this is nuts. And then the final little piece is that they teased Call of Duty 2020. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
No, I don't. I'm done with
Okay.
them. They've got enough attention. They're going to make all the millions of dollars. I guess the only thing that I can hope is that because these companies, and I'm always going to love and trust Nintendo because I grew up with them, and I'm dumb because they're a corporation just like Activision and Blizzard is. I know, but I'm hoping that these boons and sales that Activision got, that Nintendo got, and I'm sure that trickled down into Microsoft and EA, just not in big enough ways, and of course what Valorant's doing out there. I hope that these extra funds that they may have been getting because of the situation that we're in with the shelter in place rules, is that they use that extra money, that boon in sales, to maybe try some creative ideas. If a percentage of that in their war chest is now, hey, we can try some new IPs, we can experiment, we can try to establish some new stuff, I'd really like to see that. So I'm crossing my fingers for good to come from the greed.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think if there is an example of that we can point to say that all hope is not lost, it's Epic and Fortnite and that new development model that Epic put out that we talked about a couple weeks ago. That's a perfect example of Epic taking all their Fortnite money and rolling it directly back into the development community and saying, hey, we want to see different games and we're going to bankroll them. So there's hope that could exist with Activision and Blizzard. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see if they can follow up with that. So
yeah, they keep winning, dude. And like I said, we can cross our fingers and hope for goodness out there. Something that I wish that I would have known to be like casting my gypsy hexes and doing summoning circles for were some of these canceled projects that came to light this week on Twitter and through different posts. Now, there were apparently 2 rare games that were being pitched to Nintendo, and we're going to talk about a few different types of canceled games, but I thought it was really important to highlight these things because we never get to see this stuff until years later. It's like released because someone's like, oh, here's some concept art for this thing that we did. But video game studios, they work for 6 months, 8 months at a time, building a vertical slice of a game to pitch to their either parent company or other people with the IP, just like that Seinfeld game that we talked about previously. And it's just so sad because I'm sorry, I said rare earlier. I meant retro. I meant Retro Studios. Retro Studios, the people behind the Metroid Prime trilogy there. Right. I think Retro Studios is great. And of course, they made the more recent Donkey Kong Returns and the Freeze one as well. And they had pitches for a Sheik game that would have been set in the timeline where Ganon wins. And you would have been playing as Sheik in like this. It almost looked like Shadow of the Colossus Ico, like this terror down, like Hyrule. It looked incredible, and like my heart is hurting and I want to jump into that timeline. Like I want to roll the dice on Community and I just want to be in that one. Like I just want it so bad.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. So it's the 100-year birth canon, right? Is like the core of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be a big action JRPG, and yeah, it sounds awesome. It sounds terrific. Like, oh yeah, no, that sounds like it could have been so much fun. And I saw some of the art before they pulled it down, so I don't know if you've noticed, but the original artist did remove all the artwork from his links. I'm sure that there are mirrors out there somewhere, so you could probably still find it down if you wanted to. But the artist did remove everything from his online portfolio for these. But some of the artwork was dark and just beautiful. It was gorgeous.
I can't believe with Retro's cachet that they couldn't get Nintendo to let them do a Zelda.
I don't know. It's weird, huh? It does seem odd.
Yeah, it just seems so strange to me. And not to be outdone, Retro had another game that was in development. It looked like it was a game starring booze, and there's 2 images that it was basically a boo that was Jesus Christ, like on a crucifix with the blood like crown, and I was like, what?
It's haunting.
And then there was obviously it's haunting. They're boos, but then there was a boo that was a Jewish star, and he was like moving forward to attack with a menorah. Like it was, I was just beside myself laughing. And there is like artwork that was not that. And of course, why would Nintendo greenlight this religious boo game? But the other artwork looked refreshing, exciting. It looked like a cool corner of Nintendo to dig more into and to do a spin-off game in. I was excited by it.
I don't know. I don't know if I would say I was excited by it because some of those other boo images really were disturbing, and it makes me wonder what direction the game would have gone in if it was to exist in some form.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I'll tell you this: the Sheik one though could have drastically changed, I think, the future of Zelda games. And it makes you wonder what could have been. It really does.
Yeah, and just last one real quick on the canceled games here. There was a Prince of Persia game that seemed to be more supernatural. He had like almost like a prototype claw on his hand, and he was fighting more like demons, it seemed. So it was a Prince of Persia pitch that I guess never went anywhere. But I just wanted to highlight it because I miss Prince of Persia. Like
Yeah.
I'm a fan of it. And I know Assassin's Creed kind of took that slot, but I think that you could do, now that Assassin's Creed has become the more RPG like one in the open world, that you could do a more focused, almost Uncharted like Prince of Persia game. And I think that even though their subject matter is similar, they could both coexist. And especially this like supernatural turn for this Prince of Persia game really, I think, spoke to me in a fun way.
Yeah, Prince of Persia, it's weird that we haven't seen anything from Ubisoft about this franchise for quite some time, and it's been years, right? It's been like a decade, and seeing this canceled footage really does make you kind of mourn to not have that as a game that is even being talked about roughly as being revived. And that's too bad, because the originals were really good, and it would be a lot of fun to see a new one. And that's like a terrific opportunity, I think, for next gen Ubisoft to find ways to revive this, some more classic IPs, exactly what they're doing with Beyond Good and Evil. I feel like Prince of Persia is another perfect opportunity to find a way to bring that into the next gen. And I would love to see that. I really would.
Couldn't agree with you more, buddy. I think maybe Beyond Good and Evil 2, because of how many times that game has been like rebooted and restarted, and like we've seen trailers, but then like the game's completely different like 2 years later when we see it again. I think that might give Ubisoft some pause on rebooting Prince of Persia, but here's hoping that Beyond Good and Evil 2 actually works and comes out at some point of life.
God, all I have to ask is, did you back it on Kickstarter in some way that I don't know about? Because if you did, I'm just going to stop hoping for it now, knowing that it's doomed.
No, I did not.
Okay, perfect. It will eventually launch then. Rest in peace, Psychonauts 2.
Damn it. There was an update that came out on Twitter the other day with Tim Schafer with his beard in his garage, okay?
Hey everyone, Tim Schafer here. Let's talk about Psychonauts 2 and how it's going to be delayed for the next 15 years.
You've hurt my heart today, sir.
Well, speaking of hurting my heart, I think it's time for you to pitch me a game.
Yeah, buddy, let me get right into it. So I was watching Disney Plus this week, and I just thought to myself, Disney is such a content conglomerate. They're, an overlord. They influence so many of the things I do in my daily. But I couldn't like fathom or imagine why they don't dominate the game space. It's like kind of crazy to me that with all these companies doing these IP land grabs, it's just like Disney has so many IPs that could be mined for video games. And I know the Marvel stuff's happening and the Star Wars stuff is happening, but I mean like the regular Disney IPs.
Sure.
Like the Cruella de Vil's, your Winnie the Poohs, all that stuff. I really think that digital space should definitely be explored a little bit more. And it's crazy that the House of Mouse, because they are all about family and kids, that they're just really ceding the entire kids gameplay or family gameplay like stage to Nintendo. It's like baffling to me, because I know they have the war chest, the money to get it done. So basically my pitch for you here today is essentially kind of focused around how Disney should be doing more Super Mario Strikers, your Mario and Sonic the Olympics, your Mario parties, your Mario Karts. They should be doing those with all of their IP characters. They should just be straight ripping off Nintendo. They should just be making tennis games, your golf games featuring your Daisies and your Donald Ducks and all that stuff, and just doing your crossover kind of games like that. So the game that I have for you is actually it's something that's familiar to gaming. It's something that's familiar to everyone, and it's actually called Kingdom Hearts 4. Fore. What you do is you take the Keyblade and you take it from the attack position and you just turn it towards the ground and you golf with Sora and squad, and you can get off Donald. He has his wand and he like does like wind magic to knock the golf ball ahead.
He's like,
yeah, yep.
Oh, God. I gotta say, the exposition for this pitch was so good. The buildup had me just like ready to hear something incredible. I was extremely excited to see where you were building to this.
And I Much like the Kingdom Hearts franchise, I built you up only to let you down so hard.
Oh, Elijah, I'm so sorry. I know that you've been broken so many times by this franchise. You know what is terrible too is as you were like, how come Disney doesn't have any fingers in gaming? I wanted to interrupt you and be like, yeah, well, they did do a little bit with Square and Kingdom Hearts, remember? And I kept it to myself. And I'm really glad I did because I think the payoff here is a lot better. And in a lot of ways, it's a lot worse also.
Yeah, man. Kingdom Hearts Fore. Kingdom Hearts 4.
Four.
Yeah, it's a Kingdom Hearts golf game featuring all your favorite Disney folk golfing with whatever they have, because not all of them have hands. So your Simba, he's probably using a tail to swat that golf ball down the court there. Not court. What do you call it? Grass?
The range.
The range. Yeah,
right along the grass.
on the box, the quote: "Play a Simba and slap it with that tail to get the golf ball down the grass."
We might need to consult someone who knows about golfing to get some of the terminology right. Dear listeners, if you happen to fancy yourself a fan of Kingdom Hearts 4 and of golfing IRL, we could probably use your expertise. Please get in touch with us.
Look, in a franchise that has so many BS spin-offs, I figured, why not have a golf spin-off in the Kingdom Hearts franchise? Because like a Keyblade, the main Keyblade, the Kingdom Key, it does look kind of like a golf club. Like, I could see it being used to golf with.
So Sora's here then in this game. Okay.
Yeah. He's your first golfer, but then you unlock all the Disney characters.
Okay. I like it. I mean, yeah, no, it's real bad.
I know, I told you.
But it will sell over 10 million copies.
Such is Square's lot in life.
God, Kingdom Hearts 4. Hopefully never coming to shelves near you.
You want to give me a red card this week? Is that what you want to do?
I don't. I've given out a couple mini red cards throughout the show, just little miniature versions. And I don't think we have a really big one this week. So we're not going to give out a red card. And I went through our show notes and I think we don't have any penalties. So I think we're officially at the end of the show.
We've done it, friends. This is a banner week. This is so much fun. Thank you for being with us.
Guys, thanks for listening. There are a ton of ways you can get in touch with us on Twitter and on Instagram. We're at GamePitch Pod. I am at J to the D, and Eli is at Mario RPGino. On YouTube, you can find us by searching at GamePitch Podcast. You can email us at gamepitchpodcast@gmail.com. Eli, anything else?
No, I just love you guys, and I'm going to make Kingdom Hearts 4 before I die. Know this.
Thanks for tuning in, and if this was the last time we hear you because of Kingdom Hearts 4, I totally understand.
I'm going to build it in Roblox, baby. Let's go!